Hello, Merrimack. My name is Rosemary Rung, and I'm your host for Discover Merrimack. This show is about all the little hidden treasures and not so hidden treasures that you can find around Merrimack. And today I'm so thrilled to have Rick Gagney as my guest. I met Rick, I don't remember actually where, but I needed honey, and he is a beekeeper in town in addition to being a firefighter for the Merrimack Fire Department. So he's a man with many talents, but today we're going to be talking about bees and honey. And Rick, can you tell me, how did you get started in all of this?
So it was, I had a friend that was into beekeeping, and I had gone and looked at the hives, and I was just fascinated with how in depth and how simple but complicated the process can be, and how much interaction we have with the bees and watching them build everything up, and it just fascinated me. So I ended up getting one hive for my house, and I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. So I ordered a hive and picked it up locally in town, and from there it's kind of just turned into a small addiction. And it's grown from one hive to 22 hives, and I have them scattered in a bunch of different locations. And yeah, it's just a fascinating hobby slash. It actually can become just a hobby. It can become a business, and there's a lot of different directions you can go with it. So it's just been such a fascinating journey.
Well, I think I just remembered, I think I came to you because I was getting these seasonal allergies that were so bad. And people have said that local honey helps address that because it's got the local pollen in it, helps acclimate you, I guess. But
Absolutely.
It's great.
Absolutely. My son has had really, really good the benefits of the allergies, that the allergy benefits have been huge for my son too. Same thing. Used to be on all kinds of medications, started using some of the honey and stuff, and it helped curtail a lot of that stuff, which is pretty cool. And it's very different than what you'd buy in the store, because store honey is processed very differently. So
Well, that's good to
yeah,
know.
so our stuff is all very raw. It doesn't become pasteurized, so you're getting all that goodness. So
I also heard honey is the only food that doesn't go bad.
correct.
Yeah, so
Correct.
that's
Yeah,
kinda
so
cool.
they found even out in the ancient pyramids, they've found honeycomb that's still capped over by the bees.
Wow.
And it's still good.
Wow.
So as long as it's capped and the bees have gotten it down to the right moisture content, and then they cap it, it's good indefinitely. So it's super
so cool.
fascinating. Yeah.
So how did you learn about all this? From your friend? Did you take any classes or
So
anything?
so I'm a member of one of the local clubs, Merrimack Valley Beekeepers, which is based right out of Merrimack. And there's a bunch of them in the state. There's one over on the seacoast, the Monadnock region, all the way up in North Country, and I kind of dabble in all of them. I'm a member in all of them, so I do a lot of mentoring and stuff. But Merrimack Valley runs a beekeepers program during the fall. So it starts out late fall, goes through the winter time. It's like 7 or 8 classes, and we go over all of the hive components, all of the things that the bees need to be successful, how to manage pesticide like pests and things like that, and we bring people from start to finish, kind of how to be successful beekeepers. And then the club meets monthly and stuff, and we go from there. And it's just, you get to converse with a lot of backyard beekeepers. So it's really cool. It's a small community, but once you get into it, you discover how many people actually do this on the side.
So we have a picture of your hive, one of your
Yes.
hives anyway. It's really cool. It's so pretty. And so there are honeycombs in this. So they're trays, correct?
Yes. Yep. So this is one of our first hives, and you'll see this happen with a lot of beekeepers. You get your first hive. It's completely unpainted. It's just pine wood, and you either have to, and you have to paint it. So everybody's super excited to get into it. Your first one becomes all elaborate. You paint all these cool things on it and everything else, and then when the bees start really ramping up, and you need to do equipment really fast, you're just slapping on whatever you can for paint, and you're building these boxes so you can try to keep up with them. So this is one of the all the artwork is from my wife. She's the talented one when it comes to painting and stuff, and she always laughs because the designs that she did all kind of matched up. But in beekeeping, you're constantly shifting stuff around. So you can kind of keep up with the bees and make them successful.
Oh,
If they're
okay.
building in the top box or they're building in the bottom box, sometimes you'll have to switch them and you'll manage frames like that.
Oh,
But
okay.
when in those boxes, we have basically 10 frames in each box.
Okay, so show me what a
Yeah.
frame looks like when you first put it in the
So,
hive.
so when you first buy them, there's a few
Yeah,
different
here.
ways you can do it.
there you go.
I end up doing wood and what's called a plastic foundation. You can do wood and you can do regular wax foundation, which is much flimsier, or you can do complete plastic, which I like the wood because it's more of a natural thing, and I use the plastic foundation because it's a little bit stronger and it handles the honey extractions better.
Oh, okay.
But again, this is all preference. So you can kind of go in a bunch of different directions, but this is what I choose to do. So when we first get them, this is what goes into the hive with the bees.
Okay.
And this is completely useless to the bees in the sense that they have to build this up before they can either start laying eggs, storing honey, or doing anything. So you have this little pattern that's stamped on there,
Okay.
that octagon pattern, and that's essentially decided by the bees. And here's a frame that's been started to be drawn out by the bees. So this is all of this, you'll see the black foundation, which is plastic, and then all of this yellow is wax that the bees generate.
Oh, yeah.
So as bees start to age, they have basically a wax gland. So after about 7 days, they've done a bunch of tasks in the hive, and they start to develop and they start to mature a little bit, and their wax glands start to produce wax.
Oh, okay.
And then they'll start building this.
Okay.
So as fast as they build this, the queen, which is responsible for populating the colony, she will start either laying eggs in each one of these.
Because she's the only one that lays the
She's
eggs.
the only one that lays
okay.
eggs. So that queen is vital. And they all rotate around the queen. They all function around the queen. And she'll lay anywhere from 1,300 to 1,700 eggs a day.
Wow, a day?
A day. So
Wow.
she is constantly laying, and as they build this out, there's 3 things that they'll store in these. She'll either lay eggs and they'll develop, or they'll store pollen in there, which the queen needs as a protein to be able to develop the eggs, or they'll store honey.
Okay.
So, and you'll see they've started to draw out this side a little bit, and then this is basically the final product. It's substantially heavier, and you'll see this one's got kind of we'll start on this side. Here's all the honeycomb that's developed, and this is what we call a feed frame. So the bees decide how they set up the frames inside. So they always put the food on the outside,
Oh, okay.
and then all of what we call brood, which is all the baby bees and all of the eggs, stay towards the middle of the
Okay.
frames, where they can regulate temperature a lot better.
Oh,
So
okay.
in those 10 frames, the middle ones are where all of the babies are going to be.
Okay.
Because they can regulate that temperature a lot better.
Are they
And then
having
on the
trouble with this
outsides-
heat?
No, they love the heat.
Oh, okay.
It's when bees are amazing at regulating temperature.
Oh,
So during the summer, you'll see them on the front of the hive, and they'll be cooling the hive with their wings. There'll be a bunch of them lined up, and they'll be forcing air inside so they can regulate temperature, and they also will use water for that.
okay.
And then in the wintertime, they cluster up, and they'll look like almost like a softball inside the hive. And they basically it's almost like they can unhook their wings to a point, and they vibrate. And that vibration makes heat, and that cluster will stay at like 95 degrees all winter long. And they'll function that way, and they'll last all of winter regulating that temperature.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool. So you'll see like this white capping. This is actually honey that's behind this white wax capping. They fill the cells with honey or nectar, and then they dehydrate it. So that wind that they're causing through the hive with their wings, they drop that moisture content to below 18%. And as soon as they get the honey to that, that's when they put this wax capping over it. And that wax, and this could stay, I could put this in a time capsule, dig it up in 300 years, and this is still going to be perfectly good.
Because I think we have a
So-
picture of one of your honeycombs too.
Yeah, yep.
And that's, so the bees are actually on it. So they're actually capping some while they're still using the other ones?
Correct. So you'll see like the white cappings on that frame is honey that they've gotten down to the correct moisture content, and then they cap it over. And everything else in there is filled with nectar and honey but they're still trying to drop that moisture content. So they regulate
Oh,
everything within the hive,
wow.
and that's so they can store it. And in the wintertime, it's really important as a beekeeper that you make sure that you give them enough food to make it through the wintertime.
Oh,
So
okay.
each one of my hives will go into winter with about 70 pounds of honey.
Okay.
And that's strictly for the bees.
Oh,
So
okay.
they can survive wintertime.
Okay.
And they'll consume all of that honey all winter long. And then if they, as winter's going along, if they start consuming that a little bit faster or they start getting low, then we can use sugar, like white sugar,
Okay.
to supplement
Okay.
if we need to. They can survive off of it, but the honey is the best for them. They metabolize it better. They function better off of it. They get all the benefits of the honey. But sugar will help us get through the winter, so the colony survives as well.
Oh, okay.
So you'll see, and sometimes you just have to. It's just they go through this last winter where the temperatures were up and down a lot. They were breaking that cluster up, and they were doing a lot more activities, so they were going through food a lot faster.
Oh,
So
okay.
beekeepers have to really manage that food supply and make sure that they don't run out and starve, because there's nothing in the winter for them to get.
Yeah,
So
that's true. So
yeah.
how
So
did
it's-
you, when you started this, how did you get the queen? Because
So, and it's so you have a few different options when you get into beekeeping. You buy all your equipment, and then you can order bees.
oh,
So
okay.
you can order what's called a package, which is basically a box. It's a caged box that'll come with it looks like a tin can that's filled with sugar water. There'll be a queen and a little queen cage inside there, and then there'll be about 10,000 bees.
Wow.
And it's called a package. It's a 3-pound package of bees, and it's anywhere from 8 to 10,000 bees that come in this. And you'll take that box, and you'll pour that 3,000 bees into your hive, and you'll hang the queen in there, and they'll release the queen, and they'll start building out all that foundation.
Oh, okay.
So it comes with your queen.
Okay.
You can also buy a nuke, which is kind of like a nuke is a miniature colony. So it's basically a box that has 5 of these frames that I showed you, and the queen is already in there. They're already storing honey. They're already laying eggs. There's already brood. So it's a functional colony already. And I take those 5 frames out and put them in my hive. So they get a jump start. So there's a few different ways you can do it. But people have, it's kind of a preference thing. The nukes, that it's like a mini colony that's already developed, they're a little bit more expensive, but they have a jump start on the package that has to build everything. So it's, and then as you, again, get into beekeeping and you have your own hives, you really don't have to buy bees anymore. So I haven't bought bees in a long time, because every year bees naturally want to multiply. So
We're going to get to that.
yeah,
Because that's like
So
a Rocky
this is-
Horror
and this-
Picture Show.
Exactly.
Of
This is how it can
beekeeping.
This is how it can landslide out of control really
Yeah.
fast.
Now, where's the best place for your hive? Can anybody just put one in their backyard?
Yep.
or-
So I live. Again, it depends where you are. The town of Merrimack, we don't have any restrictions as far as livestock and things like that and bees. So backyard beekeepers can put it right in their backyard. Mine's about 20 feet away from my swimming pool, and I've had 0 issues with the bees. My neighbors don't have any issues, and I live in a relatively compact neighborhood. And honeybees are not they're not an aggressive bee like yellow jackets and wasps. They kind of have their tasks. They're out to get pollen, they're out to get water and things like that. So they kind of function. But mine are right next to the pool. And 2 of my other apiaries are in other people's yards in town.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool. But if you're down in like the cities and stuff, some of them you have to get a permit for it. So it depends where you are. You have to kind of look at your local regulations and stuff. But up in New Hampshire, it's pretty much that live free or die, do what you want. But again, you try to be that responsible neighbor and make sure you manage your hives correctly. So everything can kind of coexist. And
I mean,
it
it's
works
so
well.
important now
Yeah.
because we need pollinators, and if we have no bees, we have no vegetables, no fruit, because we need their pollination. So It's actually a public service to be
Yeah.
able to have allow a hive to be on your property. But
And this area here doesn't really have a lot of feral bees. And what I mean by feral bees is bees that will live in like the stump of a tree. We just don't have the climate around here to have bees successfully living in the wild, as much as what you would see like down south, where the climates are a little bit less volatile in the winter. So up here, it's really important for those backyard beekeepers. They really do have a huge benefit to the area. So and it's kind of cool. One of the people, one of the houses that I leave that my hives are at, they have a bunch of blueberries and raspberry bushes all along the backside of their swamp. And for as long as they've been there, they've never really had raspberries or blueberries. They just always kind of like fiddle out. We've had the bees there now for a year and a half, 2 years, and she's like, the bushes are loaded.
whoa,
So it was kind of
that's
cool to
awesome.
see, like, now, was it my bees from the hive or who knows? But since the bees have been there, all of that is taken off, and that's all pollination from honeybees, butterflies, things like that. But I've added a tremendous amount of honeybees to that yard, and they forage all over the place. So it was kind of cool to hear that.
Now, you were talking about how some bees get water, some bees
Yeah.
get pollen. Do they each have their own job? Like, does a bee that gets water also gets pollen?
Yeah, so it's kind of fascinating. The dates and the time frames aren't necessarily always accurate, but the best we can kind of come up with is, like you said, you have that one queen. That queen is responsible for populating the hive. Only lays eggs, and then what you'll do is those eggs will develop into brood, and when that bee hatches, so all of the bees that are in that hive that are doing any work are female bees. They're all females. So all of your honeybees are females, and what they'll do is when they're first born, they're like 1 to 4 days. They're responsible when they hatch out. Their job is to clean out those cells, get them ready to be reused. So they clean it all out. They get everything ready for the queen to either put another egg in there, or somebody to put pollen in there, or somebody to put nectar in there. And as they progress, like I said, they start to develop a little bit more. That 7 to 10 days, their wax glands start to produce.
Okay.
So we're not cleaning out cells anymore. Now I'm building honeycomb, and I'm starting to build this. So now you have these bees that are now become architects, basically. And they're building all these honeycombs, and they're expanding the hive. And then there's the undertakers, because as many bees as that queen is laying, the same number of bees are dying every day. So when you have that queen laying 1,500 eggs a day, there's thousands and thousands of bees dying every day. Their life expectancy during the summertime is only about 40 days.
Really?
So if she's not laying fast, that hive's not growing fast.
Okay.
So you have basically undertaker bees, and their job is to just carry the dead out, and you'll see them drag them to the edge of the hive, and they
Just drop
pitch them
them.
out.
Do you
and
see dead bees?
Yep, you'll see some dead bees,
wow.
or you'll see one get to the edge. They don't typically drop them out because that invites pests around the hive. So you'll see these bees carrying another bee, and they'll go
Take it away.
15, 20 feet away, drop it, and back they come. And that's all they're doing. They're undertaker bees. And then as they develop a little bit longer, a little bit more time goes by, then they have these bees that are basically taking pollen and nectar from the foragers, and they bring it up and they organize it in the hive.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a cool, you mentioned a term to me when I saw you at your beehive, the pollen basket.
Yes.
And so
Yep.
we have a picture. So tell me about this. Tell me what the bees do with this.
So that is pollen. It's in all of the flowers that we have around here. That you can get pollen from pine trees. There's different pollens that kind of happen all the way during the season. And these bees, as they've progressed through those jobs, they've become foragers. So the foragers will either go out and they'll forage for water, they'll forage for nectar, or they'll forage for pollen. And the pollen is the protein in the hive. So that's what makes the queen able to develop. So the bees take this pollen, they mix it with a little bit of honey, and that's what they're feeding to the eggs and the larvae so they can develop. So That's just a close up of the bees. And what they do is they go out and they basically pack those back legs with the pollen, fly into the hive, and then into the cells it gets put, and it stores up. And it's cool because as the season develops, you'll be able to look at the frame, and you'll see orange pollen, bright yellow pollen. You'll see green, and it's all different foraging types. But it's like a rainbow of color all over there, and it's all the different pollens that they're grabbing.
Well, so I love your honey, and we notice that it's a lighter color now.
Yes.
So does that have to do with the pollen?
So that's going to have to do with the nectar that's out there that the flowers are producing.
Okay.
So the flower, some flowers produce pollen, some produce nectar, some produce a little bit of both. So springtime, you'll see a lot of the clover that blooms all over people's yards that some people leave and love, which is super beneficial for the pollinators because that's a huge honey source for them. And what they'll do is you'll see that lighter color is a lot of time the clovers, the newer flowers that are blooming out. And then as the season goes on and the clover starts to die off, you'll start seeing other nectar sources that'll start darkening up a little bit. So you'll see spring honey is super light. The fall honey gets a little bit darker, and it's all because of what they're getting for sources. And you'll see some places, some honey producers will have large fields of lavender. You'll see sometimes people will advertise like lavender honey. And it's because they have acres and acres and acres of lavender that the bees are foraging, and when that dies off, they extract that honey, and then they can basically say, yeah, this is lavender honey, because that's where they were primarily foraging. But I can't ever say that because bees will forage up to 4 or 5 miles away.
So, and they still know how to get back.
And they still know how to get back. They navigate with the sun, and they give directions to each other. So the hive, when they're out foraging, most of them are going to the same location. So they come in, they do what's called a waggle dance, and it's kind of a series of figure eights while they're walking around on these frames, and that's directions based on the sun to the other bees that, hey, I found this flower that's a source, or I found this field of flowers, and they're giving directions to all the other bees doing this little dance, and they take off and they come back. And when you stand at my hives, you can see the bees all on the same path, and it's just it's just fascinating how many bees are in and out, and you're like, wow, I would have never known this if you don't stand next to the hive and watch it. So it's pretty cool.
That is so cool. In the time we have left, let's get to the Stephen King part of beekeeping.
Perfect.
Tell me about the swarms and what they do with the extra queens and stuff.
So like I said, bees naturally want to multiply. So when they start running out of room in a hive, they do what's called a swarm. So when they run out of room, that queen, the colony decides, okay, we're getting too big for this hive. It's time for us to split. So they do what's called a swarm. So they change the diet to some of the bees or some of the eggs that are in the hive, and they start developing new queens. And that queen is it looks like a long peanut that's hanging from the cell, and those are queen cells. So they'll make 7 or 8 of those in the hive, sometimes more. And what happens when one of those is capped, so they make this long wax tube basically, and as soon as they cap it and they know there's a queen in there, the existing queen will take half of the population and they leave. And they swarm.
Because we have a picture of a swarm, and it's like incredible, all those bees.
So this was a swarm at one point. They were not able to successfully find a home. So they started building their own honeycomb in that format.
And is that what you use this for?
Yeah. So what we did is we actually got a call from this company, and they were like, "Hey, we got all these bees under our landscape trailer." So we showed up and basically cut all that out, relocated all those bees into a hive, and now they're in a beehive and they're happy. So when we go and we do stuff like this, or we're working in the hives, we use a smoker.
Okay.
So bees communicate with movement and pheromones. So when one of them gets angry and stings you, or uses their stinger or starts to get threatened, they release these pheromones that basically tell everybody else what we have to do.
Yeah.
So when we use a smoker, it breaks that pheromone chain. So when we smoke it, they're not smelling the pheromones anymore that say, hey, we don't like what's going on. We want to defend the hive a little bit. We smoke them. It makes them go down into the hive a little bit more. It kind of makes them a little bit more passive.
Okay.
So that communication, it kind of breaks it, gives us a little bit more time to kind of do stuff.
Yeah.
But they're, again, it's cool when you see and you can hear the sound change in the hive depending on how things are going. So
You know, Rick,
it's cool.
I could talk to you all day, but I know we're running out of time.
It goes fast. It goes fast.
This is fascinating. I don't think I ever get tired of hearing you talk about bees. So I want to thank you so much for coming on. And also thank you for all the work you do for our town as a firefighter. We really appreciate you so much. Now, where can people go if they want more information about your bees?
So I do have a Facebook site. It's called First Do Apiary. That's the name of my of my small company. And it's more of a backyard thing, so we can do our own honey and stuff. But I post all kinds of pictures on there. So if you find us on Facebook, it's First Do Apiary.
Yep,
and then
First Do
and what we do
Apiary.
is I post inspection pictures on there when we go catch swarms. We were down in Boston the other day catching a swarm and stuff. And so there's a lot of education that happens when we go out and stuff. And that's what's really fun about it. And like I said, there's also local clubs.
Okay.
So if you look up Merrimack Valley Beekeepers, we have meetings every month, and that teaches you, and it's like $20 to join, and that includes you being able to go to bee school, and learn all about it. And then if you decide to do it, great. If you decide you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But then myself and a bunch of the other members are mentors in the club, so we help people get started, and we go out and help them with their inspections and kind of work through kind of issues that pop up. But that's what's the fun part is you get to work with a lot of people, get them excited about it, and then it becomes an addiction and out of control.
Well, thank you so much, Rick, and thank you
Absolutely.
for tuning in. And I hope you really found this episode just fascinating as I did. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Have a wonderful day.
Yeah.